You are listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. I'm Kyle Bryan.
And I'm Sean Baumstark. Together, we're navigating life with disability.
Sean and I were both diagnosed with a rare, debilitating, life-shortening disease that has affected our physical abilities and causes us to live with urgency. We are constantly looking for the next challenge, not only in spite of our disease, but because of it.
We are two dudes who constantly challenge our own abilities, and we invite you to do the same.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast, episode 10. Today we're going to be talking about the Ataxian Athlete Initiative, a grant program that I created to give grants to people in the Ataxia community to buy disabled cycling equipment. So we're looking forward to an awesome episode today. What's going on, Sean?
What's happening, Kyle? Since you asked me first, I'm just chilling over here, drinking a cup of coffee, enjoying some pretty decent weather lately.
Yeah, man. Yeah, California got a ton of rain, right?
Well, we've been getting rain, yeah, and there was some crazy stuff about a month ago, dams overflowing and levees breaking and stuff, but we seem to be recovering okay, and finally, we're not as depleted for water as we were over the last couple of years. It was kind of a big deal. Like, such a big deal last year and the year before, like state offices and properties quit watering their lawns. Like, they were not allowed to do that anymore. But I think we're finally on the upswing again.
That's good, man. Man, I was really feeling for all those people who got displaced because of the floods.
Right, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's obviously unfortunate, but it's great to be on track with the water situation, I guess.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool because there are so many stories in surrounding cities that, came together and made makeshift campgrounds and emergency, I forget what you call them, but like temporary places, essentially for people to live while
shelters. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That. So yeah, that's pretty neat to see. Besides some earthquakes years ago, Northern California doesn't really have a lot of issues, so it seems, and now it's just neat to see the way people and systems and different things came together to help out in the middle of a crisis for, upwards of, I believe, 100,000 people.
So it was absolutely beautiful around here today, or it still is. I rode my trike 20 miles yesterday and 20 miles today, and dang. I was just living, soaking up all the sun because it's horrible up in the Northeast up here. In the wintertime, as you can imagine.
Yeah, I certainly can imagine, and I'm not jealous.
Yeah. So I made a smoothie this morning before I went out, and I love my smoothies. I love me some smoothies, and I've been making them for several years now. Every day that I'm home, I make a smoothie, my Vitamix. And somebody at my gym said, oh, you should, put a little fat in your smoothie to compensate for all the sugar in the apple and banana and all that stuff. So I had been using coconut milk as a fat source, and that was working out pretty good. And I was listening to this podcast the other day, and they were saying how fat is, it's really good to burn fat. And I was about to go out for a ride, and so I'm looking around my kitchen, and I'm like, "What? I don't have anything that has fat in it. What?" And I looked in the cupboard. I'm like, "Oh, I don't have any olive oil." I was gonna just dump some olive oil in there.
Wow.
But and then I was like, "Oh, I have a couple sticks of butter. So I just cut off a little butter and put it in my smoothie. And so it was, I mean, it was good, right? Anything with butter in it is pretty good. I mean, you could put butter on an old boot and it would probably taste good going down, you know?
No, I don't think that's accurate. No, I don't think anything's gonna help an old boot.
So anyway, it was a little like there was definitely a little like film on my lips as it went down, and there was definitely like a film left on my Vitamix after I was finished. So I put it right in the dishwasher. But anyway, that's my story about fat in this smoothie.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little nervous about this, Kyle. I feel like there might be something wrong with you if you're okay with just putting straight sticks of butter in your shake.
Well, I mean, we'll see, I guess, right? I mean, we can sort of monitor my mental capabilities on the podcast, right? And be like, I think things are going downhill.
I think a lot of our listeners are okay with being perfectly honest.
But also, like, I am just sort of, especially with diet and stuff and eating things, when I hear something, I tend to just try it out. Like, I did not do a whole lot of research about like how the body like digests fat and whether it's good to put it in your smoothie and all that
in the form of butter.
Yeah, exactly. So you and I were talking, and we've been wanting to get a nutritionist on the show at some point, just to like talk about this kind of stuff and be like, is it okay to put butter in my smoothie?
I think it's a great question, and the exciting thing about it is, we're actually. I'm glad you're bringing it up. We're actually going to be able to ask an expert that question and several others. We haven't confirmed a date yet, but over the next month or two, somewhere in April or May, we're excited to bring on a specialist who's been published in national forums. It's kind of in her own right, a big time contributor to the world of nutrition. So we're excited to bring that one up soon.
Yeah, that's going to be really good. Awesome. So Sean, I wanted to also start this episode off by reading some listener feedback, specifically a couple of iTunes reviews. I've really been enjoying all the feedback, and I know you have too. And we really, really appreciate it. And so, iTunes reviews really help us out. They improve the search optimization for the podcast in iTunes. And so we just wanted to read a couple of reviews, and anyone can just go on iTunes and submit a review. So, Sean, do you want to read the first one we chose?
This one comes from user named Mini Me Sar. This has truly helped me and my husband with his diagnosis. He wanted to ignore it for a very long time, and hearing how you both handled your news was so great. Knowing people with disabilities, and in our case, this one, and hearing they lead normal lives is so refreshing instead of all they are told they can't do. Love how it covers things that happen every day and how different people cope. Mini-Me, Sarah, thank you so much for giving us a 5-star rating and, of course, leaving those comments. We're incredibly encouraged by that, and we're so thankful that you and your husband are on the journey with us.
So the next one is from Avery Zaritsky. We know Avery and love Avery. So just there's a little bit of insider trading or insider information, something going on here, but really appreciate this one as well. It's called, she titled it The Unspoken Truth. She says, I listened to this in the car this morning while driving my kids to school. By the time we got there, we were all laughing, and they said, pause it, play the wrist step pickup. We want to hear it. It's so nice to know I'm not fighting the disabled battle alone, and it gave me and my family back some tolerance. Very inspiring. Keep up the conversation.
I love it.
Awesome. Thanks, Avery. Really appreciate that encouragement, and we will definitely keep up the conversation.
For sure. I think that's great. So, thank you to everybody, whether you've made a comment or not. We appreciate the downloads, the listens, the likes on Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is, whatever platforms you're using. It's incredibly encouraging to Kyle and I, and like I said, it just fuels our fire to keep going.
Yep, I agree. So, Sean, let's jump into it. I want to talk about the Ataxian Athlete Initiative. In 2009, I received a grant from the Challenge Athletes Foundation to purchase a new cat trike. And this trike allowed me to go further and faster than ever. And this grant, it had so much impact on my life that I wanted to start a grant program specifically for the ataxia community. Mm-hmm. A lot of the stuff that we talk about today is going to be specifically about the Ataxian Athlete Initiative, but also it relates to equipment grants in general. This is not a unique concept. Like I said, I received a grant from the Challenge Athletes Foundation. There are tons of grants out there. So even if you don't have ataxia or FA, a lot of this stuff conceptually applies to you as well. So just wanted to throw that out there. This program, it's called the Ataxian Athlete Initiative, and it's provided funding for 32 individuals to purchase their own adaptive cycling equipment since 2009. We provide funding for trikes like mine and hand cycles too. The application period for the Ataxian Athlete Initiative is now open for 2017, and it's open until May 1st. That's a deadline. So for this application, applicants will fill out an online application that includes their personal story, and they'll also provide a detailed request of the equipment that will work best for them. The application is pretty simple to do, but it deserves a significant amount of thought and effort. Each application is reviewed by a panel of athletes with disabilities and others in the ataxia community. This is a competitive application process, and I think that's important to understand, that funds are limited, and the panel will choose the applications of the people they think will most make use of their equipment. And so it's important to understand with the Ataxian Athlete Initiative and any of these other grant applications, grant programs, you're competing against other people that have great stories as well. And all the reviewers have to go off of is what's written on your application. That's important to understand, that you really have to work hard on getting your thoughts and feelings into the application so that it comes through who you are just by reading a few paragraphs, right?
I think that's that's kind of how it works in the college world. 30, 40,000 applications going to one school. Not not one person can know all of them. So they rely on that application process and maybe some reference letters to get an understanding of who you are and what you bring to the table and why they might choose you or select you or give you a scholarship or whatever it may be. So I think that's a great thought there, to just make sure who you are is on paper.
Yeah, exactly. So some people will receive partial funding, some will receive full funding, and some will not receive funding at all this year from the Ataxian Athlete Initiative. In that case, when someone doesn't receive funding, we'll provide feedback on how to improve their application for other, and we'll make recommendations about other grant programs that they might be eligible for, so that they can either apply to those, or they can also come back and apply for the next round of the Ataxian Athlete Initiative next time it's available.
Sure.
So in any case, we want to see your application. It's really exciting to see applications come in. We received some really, really good stuff. The only stuff that we've received that is slightly disappointing is when we look at an application and you can tell someone spent like 10 minutes on it. Because it's really simple, the application process. And so, but it's really exciting to get a good application. And so we absolutely look forward to seeing all of them.
Yeah. There's a part of the application where you talk about why you deserve, or I don't know if deserve is the right word, but why we should consider you for the funding.
Yeah,
and some people tell go ahead.
Oh, I think it's more, how the funding will improve your life. I think that
sure.
is,
Good
that's
point.
the key. So,
and some people will give a great story of, this is what I'm doing and this is how it'll help, and so on and so forth. And some people really just rely on the diagnosis and say, well, because I have a disability, it'll just make life better. And like Kai was saying, what we're looking for is a lot of thought and effort in terms of seeing what you're doing and hearing about what you plan to do, what you intend to do, maybe what you're already doing, and how this funding will add more value. Not just, I think I should be given money because I have a disability. It's not really.
Yeah,
it doesn't really work that way.
Well, and that's not really a unique story. I mean, imagine imagine every single application says the same thing. Like, it's important to make yours stand out and, get noticed because you're saying something different. And the thing that's different is the way it's going to affect your life and your life experiences. And that's what's unique, right? Yeah. I mean, everybody's different. That's kind of a cool thing. And, that needs to come out in your application.
Absolutely.
So one of the most important things in the application is the equipment review. And so what we want in the application is for everyone to go out and do a test ride on equipment. And so for that, sometimes the dealer that has the equipment that you want is 2 hours away. You got to do a little planning ahead. You got to call them up and say, hey, I think you have the equipment I want, and I want to come do a test ride. Can we set that up? And then, a couple weeks later, you take a road trip 2-3 hours away and have a good time test riding equipment. And you think about it, and you sit down and you go, all right, look, this is really working for me. This is what I love about it. I really wish this was different. And you write that in your application. Everything you feel and all the stuff that you notice about the equipment that you try out.
Kyle, I think that's a huge part, a very important part of the application process because, like you said, funds are limited. We can't fund every application. We're not rolling in the dough, so to speak. And what we're looking for is how it can make your life better. And the thought of having an adaptive piece of equipment alone isn't enough to make life better. Like I said, you've got to test it. Are you comfortable? Is it the right style of bike? Is it the right height and level? And, does it fit you and does it fit you well? The very worst thing we could do, I believe, is offer some funds to somebody. The funds are received and a bike is purchased or whatever the process is, and a month later or even 6 months later they're not riding because it's not comfortable. And so now we have a perfectly good piece of equipment that just sits in somebody's garage simply because we didn't take the time and effort to discover, is that the right one for me?
So we encourage everyone to get started right now. May 1st may seem like it's a little ways away, but we want you to spend some time on this. We want you to think about it, and we absolutely want you to take a test ride and figure out exactly what equipment is going to work best for you. I wrote a blog post a couple years ago about, it was mainly for people with the FA, but a lot of the concepts relate to just neuromuscular disease in general. For FA, some people are better on a trike, some people are better on a hand cycle. And I think that's one of the main things you got to figure out. And it could take a little while to figure that out, a couple test rides, and those unfortunately are not all that easy to come by. You don't just go down to your local bike shop. Not everyone has trikes, and even fewer have hand cycles. And so you're going to have to do a little searching. But I wrote a blog post a couple years ago, and it's obviously still up there. We'll link it in the show notes, and it gives you a little overview of what you should do to start looking at equipment and what phone calls you should make, where you should look online, and all that stuff. So we will link that.
Awesome. The whole idea of this podcast is, like you said in the beginning, we're telling you about the information, just so you know, but we're also inviting you to explore it. If you don't have a bike or a trike, or maybe yours is really old and for whatever reason you're thinking this can enhance your life, we invite you to come apply. This is really the whole point of the podcast today, or for this particular recording. And we're going to give you all the tools and resources and maybe even some tips about how to prepare your application. Be sure to check out these links that we're going to have in the show notes and really consider, is this something that might make life better for you?
Yeah, it's the Ataxian Athlete Initiative, and you can go to curefa.org/AAI, and I'll provide that. We'll provide that link in the show notes as well, and that can get you started. And Sean and I are always available for questions as well over email. You can email the dudes at twodisableddudes.com. Or you can email me at kyle@rideataxia.org. Or Sean, how can people get a hold of you?
SeanBaumstark@gmail.com.
So if you have a question, I would say the top 3 things, and really I guess this is a repeat of the information we just gave. But for me, it's knowledge about the equipment. So show some effort into getting to know the equipment that you're requesting. So we can be confident that we're giving this equipment to somebody who knows how to use it.
Totally. I think a big thing there is, like I said, Kyle, some people, a hand cycle is good. Sometimes a recumbent trike is good. Sometimes, I don't know what you call them, but the trikes that aren't recumbent. There's a half a dozen different styles, and like we said, the last thing you want to do is get on a trike that's already been paid for and it not be good for you or not be comfortable. So you got to look at, is the seat going to be manageable? Can you get in and out of the bike or on and off the bike? Or, is the crankshaft in the right location, or do we need to look at a different style of frame so that it fits you better? All these different little things you can't figure out just staring at web pages. You have to go and touch and feel and sit on the bike.
I agree. The next thing that I had on my list was I want you to tug on my heartstrings. I feel like a lot of people, they write their story. This is what happened. I was diagnosed, and it's really hard on my family, and it's hard. It was hard to tell my friends. I stumble a lot, and I can't walk straight and all this stuff. So this is why equipment would be good for me, and that kind of leads into my next point is say something unique. So, the story I just told, I feel like we hear it a lot, and it's, I definitely feel for that story, but your application is going to stand out a lot more if you say something unique and say something from the heart. And, I think we funded a few people in the past who were like, I want this because it kills me to see my family riding their bikes down the street and I can't ride with them. Oh my gosh, I'm getting chills just thinking about that, I think that's a good example, a simple example of tugging on the heartstrings and finding something unique about your situation that you want to talk about.
I think, too, with those heartstrings, it's going to be, hopefully everybody knows and can feel the way Kyle and I pursue life. And I think it's true of everybody on the review panel. We're all optimistic individuals. And some of us have FA. Some of us have other conditions. Some of us are perfectly healthy. We're men, we're women, we're old, we're young. But we're all optimistic about life. We look forward to what we can do. And a part of what I think speaks to the heart is not spending the entire application talking about the diagnosis and how it ruined your life, but instead really talking about what you can do in spite of the diagnosis, what you could do with a piece of equipment that we're talking about, what you will do when you're able to help raise awareness and to call attention to what people are up against. And I think that's something that speaks to my heart personally is talking about the things you can and will do when you have a piece of equipment and people look at you like, oh, that's a cool bike. Why? What is that about? Why do you ride that? And then we can talk about and further increase awareness for this condition and maybe several others.
Yep. Good stuff. I also wanted to reiterate, that especially for people out there who are listening who don't have ataxia or FA, there's tons of equipment grants out there. This is not an entirely unique concept. And, there's the Challenge Athletes Foundation. That's a big one. They grant like $3 million in equipment grants every year to I don't know how many thousands of different people. I think they have it on their website, where their grants went in the past, last year or years before. So CAF, Challenge Athletes Foundation, is a really good resource. I really want to have them on the podcast in the future as well. So that'll be something to look forward to. I know of of a regional organization here in my region in the Northeast called the I Am Able Foundation, and they give out equipment grants. And the point of mentioning that is that I think there's probably organizations like that all around.
Sure.
And it's just a matter of doing the groundwork, doing the search, and figuring out where it is. My friend Matt Fritsch, he always finds some obscure equipment grant that he gets funded from that's like, it's like for people with spinal cord injuries who have an MBA and live in Sacramento on B Street or whatever.
And, have dark hair.
Yeah. Something super specific. But the point is, like, Matt always finds the stuff, and he's like, hey, I just got these new wheels. I'm like, where'd you get those? He's like, oh, I got an equipment grant. What? He gets
awesome.
So anyway, it's, it's all out there and available for us to take advantage of.
You've got I'm Able. We know that Matt Fritsch seems to find some pretty obscure ones, but we also know of another one that's specific to the state of Texas. So I think you're making a good point. There's a whole lot more than even we know about. So I'd encourage our listeners to look at what might be available to you in your region, in your state, in whatever applies to you, and explore the different opportunities that might be available.
Yeah. We're definitely going to post some links on the show notes, but it is not going to be an exhaustive list. I think that's a really good point. Like, we could scratch the surface of what's available, so it's important to just do the groundwork.
So that's a great point, Kyle. There's so much more out there that we don't even know about, and there's a lot of different options, and what we're talking about today is just one of them, and this one is unique to the Ataxian community. So obviously, if you or somebody you know is dealing with whether it be Friedreich's ataxia or some other form of ataxia, share with them the link, give them the info, use it yourself if you're one of those individuals. But the more applications we have, the more opportunity we have to explore different uses of funding and, of course, different ways we can help raise awareness to this disease or these conditions and others. So, like Kyle said, all the links are in the show notes. Be sure to check them out online and give it some thought. You've got just under, I guess, about a month and a half or so to get the application done, and we all know time flies. So don't put it off. Begin the process now. Check out some of the equipment, get your paperwork in order, and let's fund some more exciting grants.
Thank you, Sean, for joining me and talking about the Ataxian Athlete Initiative.
Of course.
And we will see everybody next time.
Well, I don't think we're really gonna see them.
Oh, well,
talk to you later.
Oh,
something like that.
You screwed up the ending again, dude.
What do you mean again? I'm done. I'm out. I have stuff to do.
All right, later.
All right, man. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you for listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. To find this episode and links to some of the stuff we talked about today, find us online at twodisableddudes.com or subscribe on iTunes.
We'd like to hear from you and feature your feedback and questions on future podcasts. Be sure to visit us at twodisableddudes.com to find our contact info and connect on social media.
Special thanks to our audio producer, Jake Tompkins, who also composed the music.
We'll share a new podcast every other week. We hope you'll listen and share it with a friend. Until next time, keep living with urgency.